What's up, guys? It's Epic Tales back in the building. For 3 weeks in a row, we am with Novus Renaissance, and we're super excited. I don't know if you've seen the premiere episode one that came out on Wednesday, August 16th. So far, the response has been really, really good in terms of like engagement and just like general, people like liking the story and everything. So, yeah, like we are very, very excited to discuss this today. And yeah, I think Novus Ren has new headphones today, so I'll allow him to introduce himself for those who are experiencing him for the first time.
Coming to you live across the cosmos, creator of the supernatural fantasy series with spectacular science fiction. The series that will blow your mind, make Tolkien proud, and make everything going on right now in a location in California cringe because of good old-fashioned story. Novus Renaissance creative founder and creative director of the Novus Renaissance and the Dor Vahdor animated series, co-worker and collaborator with Epic Tales, bringing infamous fun and fantastic cauldron of story content over to you. Now, that's a pretty good headphone set.
Well, what a way to introduce yourself. You know, Tolkien will be proud of that.
I pulled my, for later, if it comes up, I pulled my Fall of Numenor book out to give a major spoiler for Rings of Power Season 2, because you already know what's going on it, but I'll save that for later. But sorry if somebody dies.
Well, like I don't really care about like the Rings of Power is one of like I don't know, there are few shows I've hated that much, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. Hey,
it's
what's
just
up,
not
man?
about
How you
hating, it's
doing?
about creating.
Forgive me, my phone is ringing.
Some okie
Yeah,
dude.
like
It goes well. How are you? Type away.
nice, always a pleasure to have you around. And yeah, like I'm curious, have you had the chance to watch the episode? So today I'm going to start with a question for you, because for you this like behind the scenes, I've always seen how much anticipation and joy you've had with this process we've been going through. Um, what's the most exciting or like never nerve-wracking thing that you've experienced since like this premiere came out, in terms of how like people are going to like receive the story?
Well, as far as receiving the story, there's no concern. I know this is just one reference from going viral. So Elon Musk, if you find this, please post this. We'd appreciate that, or any number of high-powered visible celebrities, whatnot. Now, it's a concern at the time, but over time it will go away. It would just like getting the reference out. That's one thing, because the episode itself, which now is available on your channel, the campaign premiere, we'll have the global premiere with it all finished. But it's more about getting the reference point out, because you could have the fantastic product, but if nobody knows that you've got it, it takes time. So it's sort of that, and then a bit about the campaign. Seeing if we actually make it all the way through. I predict that we will. Here and now, that we will have a successful campaign. But we've talked about it too. It's for $1. You can get your name in the credits eternally. $3 or $5 rewards. As you said in the Great Rewards video that you made. For two Starbucks coffee. For two Starbucks coffee, I can go ahead and have something special. But I think that's mainly it, because at the end of the day, we're creating, and Dor Vahdor, I think particularly men will understand. Ladies too, because there are some wonderful female authors out there, but men, like to create empires and kingdoms, and ever since, you make your first sandcastle, you're like, I want to do something. And so particularly since you and I are very driven in a similar manner, we're going to do this. But if we can get more people to come along with us earlier than later, that's ideal. And George R. R. Martin's book, Game of Thrones, the original, I think it was a bestseller in 1993. You fast forward about 20 years is when he finally got approached to have the show. Now he's got, I think, 99 million, $100 million, but yet he has no Winds of Winter. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, he has no Winds of Winter, and we continue to wait. Like I've told myself, I'm probably not going to be reading any new books he releases until he finishes the series, because every time a new Game of Thrones book, a new Song of Ice and Fire book comes out, I always start from scratch again. So I'm just going to wait until he finishes, because I cannot keep waiting like book after book. Like, he's just proven that I can't rely on him on that aspect. I love his writing. I love his ability with the pen. I love his characters. I love everything about the story, but I am not going to spend time just like waiting for the new books to come, because the time span between each of them is just way too long for me. Now, this one is like a kind of like a little bit of a personal question that like I wanted to ask you, and kind of like already touched on it, but based on what you watched, based on like the motion, the premiere that came out, was there anything that about like how like my interpretation of your vision for the story that I missed, or is there something about about it that you liked? Like, was I like aligned with you in terms of the vision of adapting the book from like writing to motion comics?
Yes. I'll say first that overall, and I'm going to give an analogy with Ayn Rand, but jump in at any time to prevent me from talking too much. But overall, you nailed it. If you study relationships of movies, going back to George Lucas is the most visible. There's always that concern about creative control, and then when you, as a director or an executive producer, but then if you're an author, you're like, okay, like how is the studio going to actually treat my work? But since we're both, organic, and we both are kind of lords of our own realms, we work very well. And what I appreciated is you were able to take, I think most of the script I gave you was basically right out of the book. And I said, when you take something from book to film, you're going to have to make some changes just because it's the nature of setting it up. So with the 2,000 words I sent you, that were summarizing key actions for book 19, which is the chapter of the book that we go with, you hit it out of the park. And there's 3 specific things that I remember when I watched the first raw footage that you sent. The first one is the character of Lucifer and how he was designed. Very, very similar in the book. The book has more details, but we have a budget, we have limitations. So you have this technically 6-wing cherub because he's got 2 wings on his forehead. He's got 4 wings behind him, and which is critical at the end of the book, the first book. So there's that whole presentation. See this creature of majesty, this ousia, it's the Greek for substance. The substance is majesty, and you see him kicking off the rebellion. Then the next scene that I really like, there's kind of 2. It's the motion shop action sequence. It's one when the angels are popping up that are in the war started, and they all line up with their bow shots. And unfortunately, one of them gets it point blank range. And then the Ophanim sequence when you have the angel enraged Samuel, and he just slices and dices it.
Why don't we show them like while we're talking? Like
this sequence. The transformations of the Ophanims, because that's like the tell in the book, and then in the book it's written where you've already found out, but this sequence when you've got the slice and dice betrayal, and it's just like I was just like, wow, like I was not expecting that, and then you have the rage sequence, and the capture, but that slice and dice sequence, for me, I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I started thinking like, man, if we had a budget like Hollywood, we would be able to just, this would dwarf the end game sequence when you have all the Marvel characters coming out. No, seriously, because we deal in trillions of ranks. So I'm just like, Thanos and his minions are dwarf. They're nothing.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, like that's what going for, and like while we are going through the process, that's why I worked very like hand in hand with you. Like I just kept asking you questions all the time to just make sure that I was aligned with your vision for your story and everything. So yeah, it was very 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 fulfilling experience and everything. And yeah, like I'm excited for more. So far I think we've
Boy,
raised up to 40.
I got one compliment to pay you with that as well to close that up. I saw
Okay,
on on Instagram. It was a funny reel. It was a bigger guy, influencer guy. But he basically said, "Hey DC, I've got $1 billion idea for you. Take Superman, the animated series, the one they ran in the '90s or early 2000s. So just take Superman, the animated series, make each episode a movie. Like boom, right there. Is it just take Batman, the animated series, just make each episode a movie, and you have this." I don't know ultimately where it streams from. There's probably a bit of narcissism in it, but I think it used to be in the '90s when you'd have a book adapted, they would take a lot of liberties with it because they would be able to then qualify probably for some sort of Oscar as opposed to just directly adapting it.
uh
But you look at that's my theory. I have a George R. R. Martin theory as well. If we get into that later, but I think that you have a lot of people in Hollywood today and in the film industry feel that they have to create their own stamp on things or they have to remake something as opposed to just giving the story that's already been developed either in book or in comic or in even a show. They literally have the whole sequence laid out for them. They just have to make it, but they may not be able to get those qualifying things. But ever since Star Wars didn't win Best Film in '77, nominated for 10, and it was nominated for Best Director and Best Picture. If Star Wars didn't win Best Picture for sci-fi, for example, it's going to be very difficult now because CGI is the name of the game. So what you did is you literally just took the book, you worked with the author, you know, and we created a visual of a moment from the book. And with all the constraints and all the things we have, you nailed it and out of the park. And I'm saying that objectively because I know, you say, well, this animation isn't the best. It's like, well, yeah, I know, but how about you donate to the campaign or how about you send us a donation? And Arena Sharita, thank you for dropping by. Hello back. And it's wonderful to see you again on the live stream.
Hello, Arena. Thank you for showing up again. But yeah, well, yeah, like that's what I want. That's what I wanted to do, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. And just to touch on what you're talking about like Hollywood trying to put their own stamp on stories. I think it's very like it's very disingenuous because a lot of people like they use the name of the story. So, for instance, like. Lord of the Rings or like Wheel of Time, for instance. They use that to get as much of a fan base, as much as as much
Two Greek
attention as
tragedies now.
possible.
Two Greek
Yeah,
tragedies.
I completely agree with that. But like they use that to get as much attention, and then with that attention comes expectations because people like the story for what it is, not for the spin that Hollywood is trying to put on it, or and all of that. So when Hollywood makes all these changes, it just like it just seems very manipulative, and it's an issue I have. And sometimes it has been done well, like the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, where the like aspects, like the essence of the story was kept, even though they took some liberties. So liberties are okay, but at the end of the day, you have to understand what the creator of the original story was going for, and you have to stay true to that, no matter how many liberties you take or you don't take. You have to like keep in line with that, so that the fan base that you're leveraging, you're getting the attention from, can watch it and feel like that okay, they were not just this was not just a cash grab. So yeah, like I'm very like honored that you brought that up, and thank you.
Yeah, and creative liberty is one thing, from a historical film standpoint. Let's just take Lord of the Rings since we're on that, and then I'll give an illustration how we did with the book. Take the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy with Peter Jackson. At the time, so he's filming in the 90s, and in 2001 the first film hit. At the time, by the book and the appendices, Arwen is nowhere in the story except literally at the end when she shows up to the king. Sorry, spoilers, you should have read the book by now. If you hadn't, now you have inspiration. So she is literally nowhere in the story. In the film, though, replace you see her replace a very prominent elf, and she takes his place with the riders in black, with this river scene with Frodo, and you have the epic sequence when they say, "Give up the halfling shelf," and she draws out her sword and says, "If you want him, come and claim him." And then the rest is history. It's in film, and it won 3 Oscars. So we have that sequence, and we have a love story that's brought out of the appendices that was very intimate and woven with Professor Tolkien and his wife. Nowhere in the book. That was controversial from a fandom because this isn't following the book. And if you go to the Ralph Bakshi film, the animated film, she's not in there. But now you compare something to what they did with Rings of Power or Rings of Prime or the Rings of Power Heresy, and it's like, please just give us more of those changes. And then you take the book that we have, one of the big changes in it prospectively is the betrayal scene of the Ulfinims with Morel, the Ulfinim. He
Well,
shows up.
like maybe we
You're
shouldn't spoil too much for them. Like
okay.
let them watch it and experience it for themselves. But yeah, like kind of like
It's really good, guys. Watch it right now. It's really, really good.
pretty much.
But we essentially we kind of had to reverse it because in the book you find out what has happened and then it kind of goes back. It kind of is like a battle report sequence.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the film you don't know, and that was actually a really good suggestion that you had, which is one of those examples with like from a film, book to film, is that like, hey, this was good for the book, but if we wanted to really blow people's mind in the sequence, we need to actually change it a bit. That's perfectly fine. We're not talking about those changes, and we're not talking about, hey, we want to get something in, so let's change it, like what Peter Jackson did, because he wanted that love story to be told. That was very important for Tolkien, who has he on his tombstone has his wife next to him, and he has basically John, Ronald, and Edith, and then he has Aaron and Arwen and Beren and Luthien. And so she was synonymous. She was his muse, his wife. So she symbolized those characters for him. Anyway, back over to you.
So very like something I'm very curious about is like that soundtrack. The music on that like on the production was so good. Like I found myself listening to like a lot of the songs like when because I was trying to like match it with like the beats and everything at different aspects of like the motion comics. Like how did you put that all of that together?
Well, the same sequence of what I did with everything is you have to go out and find people to help you out and do it. But let's start with to your question. Let's start with why have an original book soundtrack. Essentially, I'm treating it kind of almost like a soundtrack for a film. I wanted to have music for 2 reasons. One, I like film music, and I really enjoy listening to that when I write. So I also wanted to, create that for me, but also it creates a wonderful opportunity to have royalty-free music and music that I own for exactly what we did with the book series from the film, and then also for different YouTube videos. But it's also something that I wanted to give the audience or the reader, because the book soundtrack is designed to essentially musically summarize each chapter. So if you were reading book 19, you could listen to the 6-minute book 19 soundtrack, and you could hear essentially the Great War in Heaven. So it's complementary, book 1, aka chapter 1, track 1. So when you have the first book, and for reference, chapters are basically my naming convention for them as books. So it's creating it more like, original. If you read the Iliad or Odyssey we talked about last week, if you read the Bible, they go by book, even though they're technically chapters. But they're stories that there's
Put
enough
together.
art. They have their own stories you could write within them. So I was like, I wanted to have that music for me, for productions, and then for the audience to really experience, because the music will allow your imagination. And then I had to go and find two people. I think there were at least up to a dozen different music artists that I reached out to, and some never got back to me. Some we went about 2/3 of the way, and then the other the other people just didn't uh, end up working out. And one was a French composer who did the Dor Vahdor main theme and some of the war music sequence. His name is Louis Valet, and he's from France. And then the other composer is Andros Fata, and he's from Italy, and he did the entire book soundtrack. And the reason I had two is I had them working on two different sets of compositions to be able to get this project done. And I posted on the chat just now the link to the website where you can go and read it. But again, this was to complement the book and to, quote, fuse one's mind to the pulse of every aspect of tempo and emotion that begins with the first page and climaxes with the last, featuring the talents of Andros Fata and Louis Valet that craft this brilliant, simplistic music themes. And we took a lot of stuff. Book 2 soundtrack is going to get into more of a science fiction, and I'm talking with him about different type of themes and stuff we could do.
Yeah, the sound was very important for me when I was making that episode 1, because I was able to, feed off the energy of the music to like create something like in tune. Like the music kept me in rhythm with the spirit of the story. So it was just like I was just curious about that, you know. So as imaginative and thought provoking as your book is, like how do you hope like this episode 1 resonates with the people who watch it and like inspires them to like dig more into the story?
Oh, if it doesn't inspire you, I think if you're not inspired by war and these themes, then maybe we need to see if you're either an AI part of the human race or 100% organic. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, the hope is, one is, when you write fantasy or science fiction, or you write um, anything that's in the nonfiction realm, ultimately, I think it's driven. That person is being driven by what they think is important. But I know some people talk about escapism. I'm not really. I think you can use fantasy for escape. My book is really more for inspiration. It's more for driving people to see that there are larger themes and there's greater questions out there. And don't fall into despair. Just be excited. But capturing the things that have made humanity from the good and the bad and the ugly is part of that. And so if there's something that you take away from watching the animated series episode 1, it would be go out and get the book and go out and read it and go out and study these things. But also I referenced and I dedicated the book to 5 men, one being my father. But of those 3 authors, we have Professor Tolkien, Professor Lewis, and Robert E. Howard. So we've got Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien verse, Silmarillion. We've got the Chronicles of Narnia, and a large number of I know he wrote a large number of religious books. And then we have the Conan Chronicler and Red Sonja and Cole King, and those are fantastic stories. And not everything has to be an escape. Sometimes you can just say, I want to just go to another place to go on, as Bilbo says, to go on an adventure. And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, like sometimes when people describe fantasy and sci-fi as like absolutely or singularly for like escapism, I think that idea of like reading fictional fantasy or sci-fi like that is a little bit reductive, because um writing a book, like telling a story in a fantastical world like allows you to touch on themes and ideas that like may be taboo in real life, but it's safe to 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 discuss them, or like at least raise ask like questions about it, whereas in reality like you can't ask those questions because they are taboo. So just like the medium and the space that fantasy writing provides, allows like some of these ideas to be brought to the light, and simply because like you're abstracting yourself from the idea itself, like you're not, so you can look at it kind of a little bit more objectively, and understand like the emotions and like the motivations and the ideas and the drives that fuel like the human condition. But yeah, so yeah, like just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it's ironic too, right? You mentioned about you're not allowed to talk, or highly verboten, highly forbidden. It just begs the question: if you can't talk about these things, how do you learn about them? So you say this was a great, for example, you'll say, "Hey, this event in history was a great evil, and it's terrible, but don't talk about it, and don't reflect on it, and don't write things on it," and allowing some people are gonna write things in favor of evil, and some people are going to write things in favor of good. But if you don't have the ability to talk and to question and to discuss, to think about things, then you might one day find yourself in that mass once upon a time, re reinvigorated to doing the same things that you said, well, I would never do that. And that's like the key port with this great war in heaven. Lucifer does not begin out wanting to start a war, and his motives actually come in the earlier part of the book. As a character and as a being, his motives come out of a desire to want to please his creator and his sovereign. And then there's a little bit of a turn, like a small crack in a window, like when that rock hits your window on the car, and you just see this little tiny divot. Over time, with the weather impacts and with the heat and expansion, that grass is going to crack a little bit more, a little bit more. So just like that sequence, his heart starts to turn a little and a little, until finally, out of his own pride, he ultimately says, I won't serve, and I shall be the sovereign, the ruler. I will have it all. And roughly a third of the angels of the different orders, they follow him. So if you're the reader, and this is like one of the big things that leads up to this climactic episode that you crafted together with us. If you're the reader and you're finding yourself carried along with the chief prince of Shemayim, with Lord Lucifer, if you find yourself justifying actions in your mind, like, I understand his point, I think that he has a valid reason, I might be in favor of that. That's exactly what I was hoping the book would do. Is if you find yourself being carried along gradually into the ranks of the rebellion, into the legions, then you don't know in the real world if you might be that person that's in that crowd, hailing that leader or hailing that cause, nothing more than a mindless minion that you watch in these fantasy shows, like, Lord of the Rings with the orcs, or the Borg. What's the great line of the Borg? It's, we are the Borg and we will assimilate you. And basically your attributes and your skills will become part of our collective. So there you go.
Nice. Well said. Well said. So is there like anything you would like to discuss in terms of like how like how we're going to move forward with like episode 2 and episode 3, it like on a creative, from a creative mindset, like so maybe something we've learned from episode 1, or just like the process of creating episode 1 that like you're looking forward to, or you're anticipating for like the next episode in the series.
Well, certainly, but before we do that, I would actually be interested to know what was, why did you end up taking it? Because I pitched it to you. I know you did motion stop, animation stuff, but why Dor Vahdor? Why'd you pick it? I mean, you did a great book review on it, so that was nice. But why continue? And what are some of the challenges and favorite sequences that you had with the show? Because you did do all the motion animation, so you're part of this intimately.
Well, I feel like first of all, it was your energy. Like I get approached by a few authors like every once in a while that want me to do like a motion comic book review and everything. But like my book reviews and my trailer, the trailer motion comics I do, like the intention is has always been to tell a full story. I've never like really like officially put it out there, but everything I've been doing was just to like learn how to, do this thing in a way where I can eventually tell a complete story using motion comics, like from a book, adapt like a book to motion comic, because I like the medium of I like that as a medium for storytelling. I like how you're listening to narration, their sound effects, and there's also like imagery for anyone trying to digest a story. So like I said, the intention was always to tell like a full complete story, and without me mentioning it to you, like I never told you personally, like, or anything, but when you came to me and you are like, oh, what, like, this is what you, the vision you have, it aligned perfectly with what I also wanted to do. And then reading the book as well, I just
This
saw
is like
like
the last alliance. The two kingdoms, elves and men, have joined to march upon the Dark Lord's host. Yes, that's
yeah,
awesome, man.
just like just that energy of like trying to create something epic. It just felt right. And yeah, like when I read the book as well, like it was written with so much passion, and it was also a very familiar story. So just like I was just the way you approached me, and the fact that you had the vision for something like I had never mentioned to you. Plus, when you approached me, like my I was at a point where my editing was not very good, but I like the
Editing
fact
has
that
always been superb, and don't let anyone besides yourself say anything else.
yeah, but like I mean, like even at the stage where I was like I know I'll continue to get better and everything, but even at the stage where now I look back at it and I'm like, wow, like I'm just grateful for everyone that even watched that, But like even at that stage, you wanted to work with me, and of course, like I would always honor like a gesture like that, And yeah, it was just I feel like a very organic, natural uh collaboration.
Well, and also I think, and this is an important lesson because that's very profound, and then I'd love to hear, the next part of it is, what were some of your favorite things, and then we'll move on to the future. But that's a very important thing that you said just now, that I approached you and you took it. And so for a lot of creators, and this is my experience, like I reached out to people, particularly with the audiobook, which is also available at the website as well. That will take you the link to Amazon. Um, I reached out to a lot of established YouTubers that did normal live. They did normal live streams. They did a lot of AMSR, and I reached out to them, establishing just a standard contract. A lot of it was shaped, well, not contract, but a terms of agreement. So fair rate. We negotiated, we agreed, we went back and forth in email. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 months, and then they just drop out. And I'm amazed. I'm just like, well, wait a second. You're literally doing narration on your channel. Your entire channel exists for narration. Or like with artists, it's like you literally do this. And the same with the animation. I I reached out to a number of independent animators, and I was like, hey, you're making other people's IP right now. Anything you're doing with Marvel or Warhammer 40K, you're making other people's. You can't ever fully monetize that or capitalize it, and if you do, you can be struck down. And you pitch it. I said, hey, here's a combination. You can work in the IP, and I'll let you have heavy creative control as we work together, and then you can take that and use it on your platform because you'll own part of it. And it comes back like, oh, I'm too busy. It's like, busy doing what? Making somebody else's brand. And you said yes. And Louis Belay said yes. And hashtag Eric Draws Art said yes. And Andros Vata said yes. And the book narrator said yes for the audiobook. So you took advantage of an opportunity, which sometimes when you're brand new starting, and that's why I don't really have any concerns about the way that the campaigns are going to go in the long term, or being able to over time make the episodes, because it was once upon a time Dor Vahdor hadn't even been named right, and it took a long time to come up with that name, and then finally put the story together. So it was created, it was birth, and people just didn't take advantage of it. But it's like now we all look back and say, if you had an opportunity to buy 1,000,000 shares of Microsoft or IBM when they first started at the initial IPO, now people with that revenue, oh yeah, I'd go buy it. Well, the problem is trying to take that same mindset when something starts up brand new, like with George Lucas and Star Wars. That movie was about to be shut down multiple times, and if it hadn't been for Alan Ladd Jr., rest his soul, that movie would have been done. The same thing they did to Jodorowsky's Dune. They shut it down because they didn't get the vision, and it wasn't that much more money to fund it. So, kudos to you for willing to at least go on an adventure and to try new things and a new skill.
Yeah, well, like I said, thank you for reaching out to me, and yeah, it's been very very fulfilling, and very I've learned so much, just like working with artists. I experienced that same thing when I started working on this project, like with artists, coming up with the thing late, and just having to negotiate, change terms like midway, have someone do like half the art and then give up on you halfway, and then you have to find another artist, and then they have to start again because the art has to stay consistent and all of that. But through everything, we're able to get it done, and you know like now a more reliable network has been formed. Like a lot of people on my channel are like, oh, Ben, you haven't released a video in a while, but there's no time. There's no time where I'm not working or thinking about how to produce the best possible kind of content for Epic Tales. This project, we started it two years ago, and I remember that I was saying, 3 months.
We, yeah, I
I
remember
told
you're
you
like, oh
three
yeah,
months,
I'm
and
up
then
because
you
of like,
told me,
I'm like,
you told me to calm down. You were like, well, you
well,
definitely, I was just going off pure. And I thought my enthusiasm,
uh,
in addition to yours, would just make it happen. But
uh,
yeah, that's
Ian,
not how stuff
yeah,
works. So yeah, it's been a very,
yeah. You're like,
very,
we can
very,
do this in 3 months. I'm like,
do
it's
you
gonna take some
remember?
time.
Do you remember when I called you, and I was just dumbstruck? I had been pacing my house for for an hour. I was like, how am I going to tell him the artist just told me to go, stick it somewhere where the sun didn't shine, And
I lived that
I was just
multiple
like,
times.
well, this is the situation. And then when I told you, you just laughed, and I was like, why is this guy laughing? Has he gone insane like me? But then you were just like, well, this is what
It
happens.
wasn't the Joker laugh. It wasn't the Joker laugh.
Well, at that point, I didn't know how to interpret it at the time, And you were just like, it's okay, just keep me updated on what's going on. And then I think we went through two or three more artists, and I actually went through more. I just didn't approach you with it because
just,
I was just like, well,
just do what you
until
do.
I'm sure,
Yep.
So
Just don't banshee me.
yes, so the process, getting to the point where we are actually able to put everything together, and this motion comics, I finished this before I before I finished my Beyond Redemption motion comics. I don't know if you've seen that. I fit no, not Beyond Redemption. Before I did my Prince of Nothing.
I
So
have,
this
and
is like
everybody on his channel should be watching his videos because he's got over 600 subscribers. So he should at least have 300 average, but he should have 600 average per video, and he should at least have 600 $1 donations on the Kickstarter campaign.
well, like if I was getting those margins, like to people that who would actually like pledge for the stuff, like that would be crazy. Like that would be so that would be overwhelmingly mind blowing. But it's a thing of always trying to keep up with what the audience wants to see and all of that. Like anybody that does YouTube will know what I'm talking about.
Well,
The
and
audience
here's
is
a
hard to please.
yeah, well, here's a great point, because I'll watch Friday Night Tights or some of the updates on Nerdrotic channel. By the way, Gary, happy birthday! It's his birthday on the state side on Saturday.
Yeah.
So he gives some good analytics on his data. He's just reached over I think it's like 800,000 subscribers. But from the metrics data, he'll always say like, "Thank you for like the 800,000 of you that are subscribed, but also to the 300,000 of you that aren't subscribed." So even with that volume of people and all the people watching him, there's like a 30 to 40% estimate that of people that watch his videos that aren't even subscribed, and it's like it's one of those
Actually,
things is like
let
if
me
you
s-
want
let
to change the direction you're going in, if you want the creative content, you got to support the creators, not just the complainers. And I understand negative press on something is a way to get a lot of views, and a lot of channels, for better for worse, they just have to do that. You have the Rings of Power, you have some of these movies come out, Indiana Jones. You just think to yourself, why are you negatively promoting this content? Well, at the end of the day, those YouTube channels have to make money. And if they can hack and slash over and over and over again, then they're going to get the views. But it's like, how many channels do we need to review Disney Willow, which completely destroyed the trilogy that was a book trilogy with a true female hero's journey? Wrote an article about that. But it's like, how many times do we have to see that? So then you have someone like yourself that's developing new content. You have like someone like myself that's developed a standing book. And it's like, why don't we give us a fraction? Just give us like a couple thousand, and that are the niche, the core supporters like you talked about, and let's see where things go. Let's do this.
So just to give context, and this is not me like like playing victim or anything, and it's basically the same for a lot of
Never
YouTube
a victim.
channels. Like it's the same for a lot of YouTube channels. Like I'm looking at my analytics right now, and it's like it's 70% of my views, so 73.2 of my views come from not people that are not subscribed to me. That's overall in my channel. So it's like when I put stuff out there, for everyone who comes on the live stream, drops a comment, likes and everything, I'm just like always super grateful. Super grateful. Like a couple of you guys have also like pledged and stuff, and I'm very grateful for that as well, and it's very encouraging. But the way the margins work in terms of YouTube and everything, it's a bit like very interesting. You're putting stuff out there, you never know how it's going to respond. Is you never know how like the response you're going to get back, and that is something that I find very interesting, because like just based on the engagement from the last video, the episode 1, like the engagement has been like one of my highest engagements so far. So I know for a fact that for the people who have watched it, they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it enough to keep watching all the way till the end, which is
That is awesome.
very encouraging. Like
That is awesome.
doesn't really usually happen like most videos people watch and then they just dip. But like for the people that watched it, they like watch from like start to finish, like a good percentage of them, at least like around 50%. So That's very, very high, and like I'm just blown away by that metric. I know that once more people see it, like would get like a better like reception and everything. Not that where we are right now is bad, because we're at 40%, 40%. Like when we came into this, we didn't know how people were going to respond, but like so far so good, and like we'll keep on going until this story is told.
Yeah, and it also said something too with the it's sort of a symbiotic balance. Like the fans are great, but does say something about the high quality of craftsmanship to the brilliant designer of the motion stop, perhaps a bit of writing as well. We have no writer strikes here.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, there was something you mentioned when you were talking previously. You said that like coming up even with the title, was very interesting. Like, why? What does Dor Vahdor mean? And like why did you name your story Dor Vahdor?
Okay, so actually, this is going to be a this is going to be something that will not be revealed, but the entire design of it, I can't reveal it at this time. No, we have to have like 10 million followers on Twitter, you know. But the it took a long time because you think of something like Middle Earth or Narnia, and I'm like, I want something that is as this matures, it's got to be timeless. It's got to be universal. It has to be something where you could be in Arabia, you could be in Asia, Australia, you could speak a different language, but you see the phrase, you're like, I know what that means. So it means something that's very universal, and that as a human family, we can all be knitted together with understanding what it is. But it's definitely something that will go into the legacy. So that's all I can reveal at this time. But what I also can reveal is an update on the campaign. We have 520 of our $700 goal pledged. So we are actually, this is the third weekend we've done the live stream. So we're closing in on the goal, and that is significant. If we had the round of applause sequence right now, we'd be blowing that up with Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now."
Yeah, yeah. Like I feel like this week it really picked up. Like we got a couple donations. We got like yeah, and like like I would be so happy like putting like those names in the credit, knowing that like they are going to get us like help us tell this story. And yeah.
Considering the story, I think you can go ahead and lead with this one. What are some of the things that you are excited about the next episode? We talked about it briefly. The character context seems to be much more driving, and the book has got some great characters. But from the data, the character context is what people seem to be interested in. But the battle sequences are cool, and then after that, we cover just one or two things, and then we'll wrap it up.
So I feel like in book two, um the episode two, like we've done some scripting for it and everything. um like we know what we know how to carry the story further and everything, but I would like to see the focus of the story, like provide more character context, so that the people that are viewing it can take something with them after they are done, like watching it, well, after they are done like seeing it on screen. They can identify with a character, or they can like have like an anchor to the story, because I truly believe it like characters anchor you to the story. And with the characters anchored to the story, I feel like the battle sequences, every other aspect of the story will be enhanced. Like people will be able to enjoy the other aspects of the story even more. Because like, and this is just from my analytics, like like when I watch it, like when I see the analytics, the part where there's dialogue going between like a mother and the son, or like a father and a daughter, where like context is being provided into the story, and everyone has an instinct for story. So I feel like anytime something like that is happening, like in
Certainly
my
do.
motion comics, that aspect of it usually has the highest amount of engagement. Like everybody is watching, and like sometimes when the battle sequences or the flashy things start happening, the engagement just drops. And like just through doing this motion comics over and over again, I've learned that people want like more of a build up and more of a story, so that like the battles matter more, and like the high points matter more, and and so it's something I'm really really looking forward to doing. And of course there's going to be some incredibly like well designed battle scenes and everything. So in general, I'm just like very very excited to be able to um, keep telling this story.
Yeah, and to complement that, I think one of the things that we talked about is with as well with that is the battle sequences being the climax of the character engagement. And just for context, from the book, page 107, you want characters. To have everyone know the reference, you have a supreme creator, you have 4 living creatures, you got 9 orders of angel, you have 11 characters that are the faithful angels. Somebody can make a Twitter song or an Instagram song. Anakel, Cassiel, Gabriel, Michael, Phanuel, Raphael, Uriel, Sacriel, Samuel, Sariel, Zuriel. Say that 3 times backwards fast. You got the rebels. Everybody
I'm not
loves
even
the
gonna
rebels.
try.
Azakel, Azrael, Bethel, Beelzeel, Ghoul, Kemuel, Lemuel, Lucifer, Magdiel, Matmonel, Morel, and Shelumiel. And guess what? All of the rebel angels, or all of the angels that maybe end up on the wrong side, they all have their name changed. So you have 12 additional names as well. Then you have 2 humans that are alluded to, and minor characters throughout. So you've got that, and I appreciated the fact that we want to drive the character impact, and then have that explosive arc be those battle sequence and stuff. And there's some cool things that we can do with the next couple episodes. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was a very very like good conversation, and yeah, like I certainly grateful for your compliments and your kind words. And yeah, like it's such a pleasure working with you. I like our chemistry, and I'm very excited for like the what we do moving forward. um and yeah, like do you have anything you want to say in conclusion?
the only thing I'll say is, we talked about it, but the only thing is, and I can save it last time. I was going to give an example about, we took this book and we adapted it properly, and capturing the spirit. And all I was going to do is a narration scene from one of the a famous film that came out last couple of years, and saying like, look, I'm just going to change these names, and I'll give you this script and just go with exactly what it says, just change it to show that you don't have to come up this. But I can probably save that for the next live stream. But everybody go and experience the episode 1. We've put it out there so you can see what we've done. So see what we've done with episode 1, so you can have a taste of what we're going to be doing even better, because the animation will be better for episode 2. And enjoy the world of Dor Vahdor. Spread the word. Donate to the campaign. Watch the rewards video. It's absolutely awesome. I mean, there's some very generous rewards, and you don't have to give more than a couple bucks. Even the $10 reward is pretty awesome, because it is going to give you a discount to everything in the Novus Renaissance merchandise shop on Teespring. And then I'll just kind of conclude with that part with you have the Rings of Prime, or the Rings of Power, and Celeborn's ending right out of the book from Tolkien wrote, and the adapted thing. Celeborn is never corrupted, and he never let Sauron touch the rings. That's on the Fall of Numenor, pages 136, 137, 138. And unfortunately, the darkness does not treat him well. Celeborn fighting against Sauron and leading the foray against him, he loses. And in black anger, he turned back to battle, and bearing the banner, Celebrimborn's body hung upon a pole, shot through with orc arrows. He turned upon the forces of Elrond, and Elrond had gathered such few of the elves of Aragorn as had escaped, but he had no force to withstand the onset. So I'm sorry if you're hoping for season 2 of the Rings of Power Heresy. Celebrimborn will be on a pole, and if he doesn't on a pole, dying in glorious combat, opposing the Dark Lord Sauron,
So
then
just
that's it, man. Sorry.
so just for context,
Corey Olsen, we're
this guy
waiting for
has
you.
all sorts of beef on Twitter with like the whole
Not
Rings
a
of
Tolkien
Power thing. So
professor.
it's just funny how like in every conversation, man, he has to say something. But yeah, I can empathize with his annoyance at how they handle that adaptation. But yeah, like we'll discuss that next week more. And yeah, stay epic and peace. Thank everyone. Thank you guys for coming out today. Appreciate it.
Hail to all.